Hello, this is the Red Riot Robot, and today we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy XVI. I recently just finished it, and I've sort of gathered my thoughts together, both what I like and what I dislike about it, and for the most part, I enjoy it. I do have some issues. I don't think any of these will be fixed because Final Fantasy is an anthology series, so whatever the next game will be, it'll be completely different. But it doesn't hurt to kind of go over the issues I had with this and the things I really liked. Starting off positive, I want to say I really enjoyed the cast. I really liked Clive, I really liked Cid, and I also really loved Gav. These characters carry this game's plot even at its weakest moment, and that's great. Torgal is also great, and some of these villains are fantastic. My favorite being Hugo Kupka. He's a fantastic villain. I love the motivation he has in trying to kill Clive, and to me that was the best part of the game. It's where the promise that the game was gonna be similar to Game of Thrones was at its best, because that's when things were not entirely revealed yet. I'll get to how I feel about the revelations at the end of the game. But overall, I would say I really loved the game all the way up to the end of the Crystal Dominion arc. Now that we're through with kind of what I like about the writing-wise and story-wise, let's talk about the gameplay. Up front, I'm going to admit, I do not like normally the combination of character action and RPG mechanics. In my opinion, it regularly gets in the way of each other. I just don't think they mesh very well. There's a handful of exceptions, and usually when I like a game that falls into this little subgenre, it's because one of the RPG or the character action elements are able to outshine the other side. I rarely feel like they enhance the thing as the whole. That being said, I would say that this doesn't entirely escape it, but I do love the skill system, and it does have this sort of rotation of abilities and rhythm that you get into once you finally unlock enough abilities to start feeling like you're doing enough damage to constantly keep up pressure. Because I would say up until you unlock the third icon abilities, it's very slow and rather uninteresting because you just don't have enough to build the stagger bar. But once you get that third icon ability, things feel so much better. Some of the icons are obviously better than others. I do love the fact that you can mix and match icon abilities. You don't have to go like your Phoenix icon is what's assigned, and then you don't have to use fire abilities with it. You can use your Odin abilities, your Bahamut abilities, your Shiva abilities, whatever, it doesn't matter. And because of that, you can really put together these strings of combos that feel really good, and that would be the best part of that game. Once I got into that sort of theory crafting for combos, I was in heaven for this. I also am pleasantly surprised by the icon fights, or the big kind of Godzilla type fights. I am genuinely surprised at how much depth they actually gave those fights. I thought that they would be the thing that I dread going through on repeat playthroughs, but when my next playthrough, they're probably going to be the things I look forward to most. I like that it's very similar to how you already fight. All the combo abilities are there. I wish you did get all of the special magic abilities earlier on instead of being entirely unlocked halfway through the game, but that's probably my only complaint on that regard. Oh, I should mention, I played this on PC. As far as PC performance goes, it goes really well. Had very few frame drops ever. The only time it ever dropped frames was when I entered a fight that had like a bunch of particle effects going on at once. But usually it would only lag for about 1 second, and then it would be fine, but you would notice it. And yeah, that's sort of the overall nice feelings I have. I'm going to get into my negative feelings and go into a little bit more depth in the next section, because this will be spoilers. Alright, we're in the spoilers section. I'm gonna first talk about my issues with the story. I actually enjoyed the story a lot. And one of the things that kept this story going for me was Clive. He's probably the second best protagonist we've had in a Final Fantasy game, the best being Cloud. I never expected him to beat Cloud, and he sadly didn't here. I do still love him though. But the big issue I kind of have with this game's plot is that the first, I would say, 2/3 of this game sort of give a promise of a plot with a lot of political intrigue, backstabbing, stuff like that. Maybe some dubious deals have to be made. That never happens, unfortunately. You never have to make a deal that seems a little iffy for Clive, but at least some political backstabbings would be nice. So the best that the political intrigue ever gets is probably with Hugo Kupka and Annabelle, Clive's mother. Hugo Kupka is trying to get back at Clive for killing Benedicta, and Annabelle is obsessed with having a pure-blood noble on the throne, and they have different tactics in trying to get back at Clive in some way. Hugo always tries to spring traps on Clive on a regular basis, and it's not until he makes a deal with Annabelle, who wants to get rid of Clive because he is sort of looked at as a embarrassment to her because he didn't achieve becoming the Phoenix, and she's even willing to turn the old guard that Clive was part of into a sort of inquisition. Those are probably the best plots in the game. Also, she's obsessed with keeping her newest born child alive, but after the Crystal Dominion, all of that kind of dies away, and we have the Waloed Kingdom. And the Waloed Kingdom is initially interesting because it seems like they're pulling the strings behind a lot of stuff, and they were, but the moment you get there, it's probably my least favorite area in the game because they don't do anything with it. And also the big bad of that area is so boring and uninteresting that he drags down the plot. I genuinely don't know what I'm supposed to get out of Barnabas. He's just sort of a puppet for Ultima, and I guess that's what the plot wants you to look at him as, but there's not a lot I can feel towards him. They try to make him very intimidating by making him this, like, Virgil from Devil May Cry-esque character, like he has a judgment cut, and it does nothing. He has something about his mother. Ultima turns into his mother at one point, very briefly, and that's it. That's all you really know about Barnabas. He's obsessed with Ultima, I guess, and Ultima can give him back his mother in some form. And then you have Ultima, and Ultima is probably the most stereotypical Final Fantasy boss we've ever had, and it's just very uninteresting and boring to me. I don't like him. The game gets into almost parody levels of dialogue. I'm going to say parody levels because Clive actually has the line of, I'm going to paraphrase, "This fantasy is your final." And I laughed so hard when that happened. But this game sort of ends with the most stereotypical, you beat God with the power of friendship. And if it wasn't for Clive, I probably would hate this game's final third. If the cast was any worse, this game would definitely just kind of fall off for me completely. Thankfully, the cast keeps it good. Jill, Gav, Clive, Dion all keep the game from falling into complete schlock. Also, the initial plot of this game sort of disappears, where it's this sort of plot about trying to free or make the life of people who are known as bearers better. And bearers are like people who are born with the ability to do magic without needing crystals, and so they're treated like slaves. So a big part of the plot in like the first third of the game is surrounding that, and the way that that's resolved is essentially just killing all magic so no one's a bearer. I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of that plot. It's odd because it's kind of like, if everyone's the same, we won't have to, I don't know, it feels messy. And another issue This game only lets you go to cities in specific points, like missions. And so you never get to explore a city and find out like this kingdom's like overall culture. You have like these villages and stuff on the outskirts of cities, but you never get to experience the cities themselves. And I'm not saying you need like big city, just give me like 2 or 3 blocks, you know, like most JRPGs do, or even RPGs themselves do, and then I can get a good idea of what you're trying to do. But these cities, like, I feel nothing for them. They're falling into ruin throughout this game. But could you, if you're listening and played this, could you tell me the difference between the Dhalmekian Republic's capital city, which I don't remember the name of, and Rosaria, outside of One's Okay with Slavery, I guess? Or even the difference between the Crystal Dominion capital and the Sanbreque capital? What's the difference in, like, what do they believe? What are the people like? And this is sort of failed in that regard. And that would be my problems with the story. I'm going to briefly touch on a couple of issues I have with the gameplay. Even though I like the magic sort of combo system you have in this game, one issue I have is the basic combo system you have, where you're just doing normal hits, is extremely limited. You have one combo on the ground, one combo in the air, and then you have another one combo in the ground and one combo in the air if you go into super. So you have 4 combos, but it's just pressing the same attack button. And you're going to be pressing that combo for about 60% of this game, probably 70%. And the rest will be those special moves. So what you're basically doing is waiting for timers to cool down. And so this feels like the most MMO character action game I've ever played. I started feeling bored by the end of this game, and I can definitely feel other people will as well. And that's about it. I will say that I think this game is a lot better than the last 2 mainline Final Fantasy games. It's definitely better than 13, and it's definitely better than 15. I do recommend buying this if you got the chance. It's a good game, despite my complaints. This is the Red Riot Robot, signing out.